When my grandmother passed away, she left behind an old countryside cottage deep in the hills of Yorkshire. My parents wanted to sell it, but I insisted on spending some time there, mostly to escape the noise of city life, partly because I felt drawn to it. Grandma and I were never especially close, but something about the house pulled at me, like an unfinished sentence waiting to be read. The cottage was everything you'd imagine. Creaky floorboards, ivy-covered walls, the constant smell of lavender and wood polish. But what stood out the most were the cat figurines. Dozens of them. Porcelain, metal, even carved wood. Lining every shelf, every windowsill, every nook. All staring. All silent. The villagers remembered her as the cat lady. She never left the house much, except to feed strays. According to the local grocer, she used to talk to a black cat named Nix like it was her only family. I moved in on a chilly Tuesday. The wind howled through the broken eaves, and the fireplace hadn't worked in years. That night, I tucked myself under layers of old quilts and tried to ignore the eerie quiet. But something woke me up at exactly 3 a.m. There wasn't any noise. No alarm. Just the feeling. I sat up and glanced toward the window. Outside, under the moonlight, sitting perfectly still in the middle of the overgrown garden, was a black cat. It wasn't doing anything, just sitting, staring up at my window. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and looked again. Still there, unmoving. I thought maybe it was just a stray. Maybe I was just seeing things. But the next night, the same thing happened. 3 a.m. sharp, eyes open wide like someone had whispered my name. And once again, the black cat was there, in the exact same spot, unmoving, watching. It happened again the third night, and the fourth. At first, I tried ignoring it. I closed the curtains. I even took a sleeping pill. But somehow, no matter what I did, my eyes would snap open at exactly 3 a.m., and I'd find myself drawn to the window. I started to notice little things. The air would feel colder, no matter how many blankets I used. A faint scratching sound would come from under floorboards, barely noticeable, but impossible to unhear once you caught it. And every time I tried to go back to sleep, I'd feel like someone or something was still watching me. On the fifth night, curiosity got the better of fear. I slipped on my jacket, grabbed a flashlight, and made my way quietly downstairs. The old wooden door groaned open as I stepped into the garden. I aimed the beam toward the usual spot. The cat was gone. I turned in a slow circle, sweeping the garden with the flashlight. Nothing, just overgrown weeds and swaying tree branches. But then I heard it, a soft meow, not from outside, but from inside the house. I turned around slowly. There, sitting just inside the open front door, was the same black cat. Its eyes shimmered yellow under the flashlight's beam. Its tail swished once. It blinked slowly. And then it was gone. Just gone. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up scrolling through local forums, trying to see if anyone else had ever experienced something similar. Most posts were harmless stories about ghost sightings or folklore about protective animals. But one comment caught my eye. If the cat comes at 3 a.m., don't follow it. It's not a visitor. It's a warning. I locked every door and window that night. Still, when the clock struck 3 a.m., my eyes opened on their own, and the cat was back, sitting in the exact same place in the garden. Just watching, I stopped pretending it was just a stray. By now, the black cat's 3 a.m. visits had become part of my life, like an uninvited routine. Every night, I would wake up without fail, eyes drawn to the window, and there she'd be, silent, unmoving, eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. The villagers had grown tight-lipped when I asked about the house. Most brushed me off with polite nods or awkward silences. But one afternoon at the bakery, an old man, Mr. Hargrove, leaned over and said, "You're staying in that cat lady's cottage, aren't you?" I nodded, expecting another joke. He didn't smile. "That black cat of hers, Nix. Everyone knew her. Followed your gran everywhere, like a shadow. Poor thing died long before your gran did. Fell sick and just vanished. Some say she buried it under that old rose bush out back." My stomach dropped. I had seen that bush, dry and thorny, long dead. But the cat I'd been seeing didn't act dead. It was too real, too present. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing noises, soft scratches from the walls, like claws on plaster, once or twice. I even thought I heard whispers. They weren't clear words, more like someone muttering just beyond the range of hearing. I set up my phone on the windowsill at 2:50 a.m. to record whatever happened. I kept my curtains closed and lay in bed, phone facing the garden. The next morning, I opened the footage with trembling fingers. At exactly 3 hours and 4 seconds, the curtain moved by itself, just a twitch. At 3 hours and 10 seconds, the camera lens shimmered and a faint shadow passed across it. Then a black cat appeared on screen, not walking into frame, just suddenly there, as if reality had glitched for a second. The cat looked directly at the camera, not at the window, at the lens, at me. I dropped the phone. Later that day, I went through my grandmother's belongings, hoping for answers. I found an old diary tucked behind the fireplace, half burnt and singed at the edges. Most of it was normal, gardening notes, grocery lists, poems. But near the end, her handwriting changed, messier, frantic. Nix is back, but something's wrong with her. She only comes at night now, only at 3. She scratches under the floor. Something is trapped. I should never have opened that box. I hear them calling from beneath. That night, I decided I wouldn't open my eyes at 3 a.m. I would keep the covers over my head, ignore everything, and hope it stopped. But the scratching got louder. It wasn't subtle anymore. It was coming from beneath my bed. A slow, deliberate clawing, with bending, then whispering, clearer now, "Let me out." I froze. My body screamed to run, but I couldn't move. My limbs were lead, my mouth dry. I felt cold breath on the back of my neck. My heart thudded so loudly I was sure it would explode. Suddenly, a sharp meow cut through the air, so loud it made me sit bolt upright. Nix was on my bed. Her fur was darker than the night, and her eyes glowed with an unnatural green hue. She blinked once and then leapt off the bed, padding softly across the room. She turned her head and looked back at me. Then she walked into the hallway. I should have stayed in bed, but I followed her. She moved slowly, deliberately, her paws silent on the wooden floor, down the stairs, into the living room, then stopped in front of the fireplace. She sat down, tail curled neatly, and stared at the floorboards in front of her. There were scratches, faint but visible, like something had tried to claw its way up. And then I heard it again. "Let me out." This time, it wasn't a whisper. It was a voice, muffled, weak, but unmistakably human. I backed away slowly, heart hammering in my chest. Nix turned her head toward me and let out a low, rumbling growl, so deep and wrong. It didn't sound like a cat at all. I ran upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and didn't sleep till sunrise. But I knew what I had to do next. I had to find out what was under the floor. The next morning, I stood in front of the fireplace with a crowbar in my hand. The house was quiet, too quiet. No birds outside, no wind, no creaking from the old wooden beams above. Just the stillness of a place that knew it was being disturbed. The floorboards in front of the fireplace were old and stained. Scratches lined the edges in chaotic patterns. Some deep like claws, others thin and desperate like fingernails. I took a deep breath, wedged the crowbar beneath the wood, and pulled. With a sharp crack, the first board came loose, revealing a dark, empty space below. The air that rose from it was damp, thick, and cold. It smelled like earth and rot. I removed more boards until the hole was large enough to crawl into. Using my phone's flashlight, I lowered myself down into the hidden crawl space beneath the living room. The walls were dirt, the ceiling barely high enough to sit upright. My beam caught something in the far corner, a small structure of crumbling bricks forming a rough, uneven sealed box in the ground. It didn't look like part of the house. I began pulling the bricks apart, heart racing with every one I removed. When the last brick fell away, I found a small wooden chest, reinforced with rusted iron bands. It looked old, very old. There were symbols carved into the wood. I couldn't read them, but they made my skin crawl. They looked like they were meant to keep something in. With shaking hands, I opened the chest. Inside, I found a bundle of cat bones, wrapped in black cloth embroidered with the same symbols as the box. The bones were delicate but clean, arranged with care, almost reverence. But beneath them, something else. A human finger, shriveled and blackened, rested at the bottom. A silver ring clung to it, tarnished, old, and eerily familiar. I had seen it before, in a photograph of my grandmother's wedding day. I dropped the lid and scrambled backward, breathing hard, heart pounding. My flashlight flickered. The air grew heavier. Then I heard it, a growl, low, guttural, unnatural. I turned. Nyx was there, but she was no longer a cat. Her body was twisted, stretched, shadowy and translucent, like smoke given form. Her eyes burned a sickly green, and her mouth was wide open, revealing sharp, human-like teeth. She stepped forward, though her paws didn't touch the ground. "Why did you open it?" the voice whispered, not from her mouth, but from the walls around me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then, in a blink, Nyx lunged, not at me but at the chest. There was a blinding flash of green light as she struck the box. The symbols on the cloth ignited, and the bones burst into flames. A terrible scream, half human, half something else, filled the crawl space as smoke swirled violently. The chest shattered, and everything went silent. I blinked, gasping for breath. Nyx was gone. Only ashes remained where the chest had been. The ring lay in the dirt, now clean and shining silver. I took it and climbed out of Crawlspace, sealing the board behind me. That night, for the first time since I'd arrived, I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. Days passed. The house felt lighter, warmer. The scratching stopped. The air didn't feel heavy anymore. I started sleeping through the night. But something inside me had changed. I knew now that the house had kept secrets even my grandmother couldn't face. And whatever she had done to keep it contained, whatever ritual or curse or protection, had been broken the night she died. And somehow, Nyx had been trying to stop it. Was she protecting me, warning me, or simply seeking peace for her own soul? I'll never truly know. But sometimes when the wind howls just right and the moon is full, I catch a glimpse of her in the garden, just a shadow beneath the rose bush. She doesn't stay long, just watches, and disappears into the dark.